Let's dive into how to configure SMTP notifications for sending or receiving emails through Infraon. Configuring SMTP, or Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, is essential when you wish to send emails from your system. To send emails from Infraon to another mail server, SMTP configuration is required. By clicking on Configure SMTP, this will be redirected to configure the SMTP page. Here, it can be observed that there are two sections in the configuration area, one for the primary server configuration and another for the secondary server configuration. Let's focus on the primary configuration first. Enter the SMTP hostname, which refers to the address of the SMTP server used for sending outgoing emails. It typically resembles smtp.gmail.com or smtp.hotmail.com. Configure it for Gmail, Yahoo, Outlook, or the organization's mail server, depending on the user's needs. Fill in the required configuration for the SMTP hostname. Next, the SMTP host username is required to authenticate with the SMTP server and is typically provided by the email service provider or the administrator of the SMTP server. Let's input testautomation.intron.gmail.com as an example in the username. Moving on to the SMTP host password, this is the corresponding password for the username provided, necessary for authentication purposes when connecting to the SMTP server. This completes the SMTP host password setup. Moving on to the sender email, this is the email address from which the emails will appear to be sent. It's typically the email address of the person or the system sending the email. Users will need to provide a sender email. The email will represent this particular organization's sender email. At this point, encryption can be utilized. SMTP supports encryption to secure the communication between the email client and the SMTP server. There are two types of encryption supported here: SSL and TLS. SSL and TLS are both encryption protocols that help in securing the data transfer. When enabled, the communication between the client and the server is encrypted, making it more secure. Typically, the choice between TLS or SSL depends on the SMTP server's capabilities. Most modern SMTP servers prefer TLS over SSL. Next, users must provide the SMTP host port. This is the port number the SMTP server uses to listen for incoming connections. Common port numbers include 25, 587, or 465, depending on the protocols being used. Since TLS is being selected, add port number 587. Lastly, let's discuss the secondary server configuration. This is a backup in case the primary server fails or goes down. In such an event, the secondary server assumes the role of the active server, ensuring that emails are still sent out. While setting up a secondary server is not mandatory, it serves as a useful failover. As per the requirements, users can fill out the secondary server configurations or proceed to the next page. The confirmation page is presented with two options. Users can directly submit the configuration or test the configuration and save it. By clicking on Test and Save Users, will be redirected to the test configuration page. Users must provide the required email ID and select the mode of configuration, either primary or secondary. Input the necessary details required. Click on Test. The system will verify whether the configurations are correct. As indicated by the Test Success message, the configuration is valid and capable of triggering emails. If necessary, users can also test the secondary server by selecting it and running the test, provided it is configured. Alternatively, users can simply submit the configuration directly from this page. Clicking on Submit or Save confirms that the SMTP server configuration has been created and saved successfully, ensuring that your settings are stored. This is the process for configuring SMTP in the infrastructure.